Chevrem, hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis u'beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy, physically and spiritually. As usually in the last couple of months, we're going to give tzedakah, gdel tzedakah shemakereves sagula. In the merit of this tzedakah, the war should be over now. All the hostages should return home safely, and it should be the gula mitzvah shleima take it from a yad mamish. Today we're going to say a prayer. Moida ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayom shechzarti b'nishmasi b'chemla Rabbi emunasecha. Thank you, Hashem, for returning my soul to me today. Rabbi emunasecha, great is your trustworthiness. So, according to some explanations, what does it mean, Rabbi emunasecha? That just as we were revived this morning and every single morning is a mini resurrection, a mini tchias hamesim. Rabbi emunasecha, great is your trustworthiness. That just like we see that today we had a mini resurrection, so too will come the day when Mashiach comes and we're going to see the full-on tchias hamesim. And that's what we're going to talk about today, a mini resurrection. The name of today's shir is Rebirth. And let's get to it. In this week's parasha, it starts off, Isha ki Tazria, if a woman will conceive, the older Zachan shall give birth to a male. And there's the laws of impurity and so on and so forth. What I'm going to say today primarily is taken from a Sikha Chelik Chav Beis. Tazria Metzoyra Sikha. It's a very famous Sikha. And many of the things we're going to talk about today are things that we spoke about in the past, but we never put it together, I don't think, the way we're going to put it together today. We're going to address one of the most huge subjects in Yiddishkeit, Befrat, and Bechlal in mankind, theology. This is one of the major questions that people have about bad things happening to good people, reward, punishment, that whole concept, that whole sugya. And it's in the Yud Gimel Ikrim, the 13 principles of faith. The 12th and the 13th is about the reward and punishment, etc. I'm not going to get all into it. Sometimes in Yeshiva Gedel, when I give a shir in chapter 26 of Tanya, which we might mention today, I tell the Bachrim that no questions. First we have to have a couple of days of downloading what Chassidus has to say on the subject, and then leave all your questions for later. It's very huge. But let's get to the Sikha. So the Rebbe asks a typical question that he asks in many, many Sikhas, and that is the name of the Parsha, which covers the entire Parsha, is the central theme of the Parsha. So then the question is, Ki Tazria, the name of the Parsha, Tazria means to conceive, which is something positive, which shows on something that's going to be new. It's a simcha when you're pregnant, when you're going to have a child. And what is the parsha primarily talking about? Tzaras, which is a punishment because a person spoke Lashon Hara and he has to be separated from the rest of the congregation, from the rest of the nation. He's by himself, he's isolated. So it's a negative thing, and it became because of a punishment because he spoke Lashon Hara. So how does it go together that the name of the parsha is a word associated with positivity, joy, and happiness? And that's the name of the entire parsha. Meanwhile, the parsha primarily speaks about something which is associated with negativity. It says whoever is in exile is like he's not alive. So how could it be that the name of the entire parsha is Tazria, which shows us something positive? There's a similar sikha in Tavshin and Beis about kisisa. Kisisa means to elevate. That's one interpretation of the word kisisa. And the Parsha Kisisa talks about Chet Egel, etc. Over there also the Rebbe talks about it, that we have to look at the whole Parsha. What's the whole Parsha? Kisisa. Every single aspect of Parsha's Kisisa is about elevation, about rising, about thriving, about growing, about development. And the same thing is going to be over here. So, the Rebbe says that one of the basics of Yiddishkeit is that by a Jew, a Yid understands that Yiddishkeit is about empowerment. Yiddishkeit is about empathy. The whole concept of punishment as revenge, chas v'sholem, like we have a Hashem who, because you didn't listen to him, he gets angry, the wrath of Hashem, he gets angry, and he takes revenge on you. A tooth for a tooth. You stepped out of line? Now I'll show you who's boss. Chas v'sholem, v'chas v'sholem, v'chas v'sholem. Such a perspective is completely negated. Rahman al-Islam. Yiddishkeit is built on the emunah that there's only something called toiv. The Eibishter is tachlis ha-toiv ha-chesed. The Eibishter is the ultimate good and kindness. Teva toiv lehetiv. The Eibishter is looking for your good and for your toiv ha-nirvanigla, for your revealed good. Every single Jew, when he gets up in the morning and he says, Moidani lefanecha, thank you, Hashem, believes that whatever is going on in his life is for his benefit, for his good. And the same thing is true concerning punishment, which is the idea of tzaras, that in this case of tzaras, we see in more revealed way than in other ways, and therefore this is a reflection, and this teaches us about the whole concept of punishment, that a einish is not there as a revenge to make you feel pain or suffering, chas v'sholem. There's no such a thing as negativity for the purpose of negativity. What do we see by tzaras? What's unique about that? So first of all, as the Rambam says it, and the Alter Rebbe talks about it in the Kutei Torah, that the whole idea of the skin condition, that a person had tzaras, was an outright miracle. Gili Alakus, it was a revealed miracle. The condition of tzaras is not something that was medically known to any doctor. If you had tzaras and you went today to the hospital and you had the greatest dermatologist in the world, he would say, I have no idea what this is. I've never seen this before, and none of his creams or pills or medications will be able to take it away. Because it's not of this world. It's a Gili Alakus. Hashem went out of his way. This is what the Rambam says, and the Alter Rebbe speaks about it. Hashem went out of his way and made a miracle so you should be aware of certain shortcomings that you have. And as the Alter Rebbe explains, and it's important to Chassidus at length, we say, Adam kiyeh b'sarei. A man, someone's in a level of Adam, which is a high level, then he gets this affliction. Which means, basically speaking, he's alright. When it comes to deeper levels and higher levels, he just has this problem still left in him that he wasn't really addressing. So therefore the Eibishter goes out of his way. He goes out of his way and changes the world order. He goes out of his way and makes a miracle for you to get some kind of condition which is not of this world. And the only way to fix that condition is by doing tshuva on that small thing that you still are not good at, and that you've messed up in the area of speech, lashon hara, etc. By getting this condition, you become isolated, which is about guidance and education, having time to meditate, and think about improving your speech, and then you improve your speech, you become reformed, and then you go back to society. So the whole thing from beginning to end in a revealed way, when it comes to the story of tzaras, was that the Eibishter goes out of his way because of his kindness. He makes a miracle. He makes a miracle so you should become a better person. Now this is true about anything going on in anyone's life. I just want to say before we continue that whatever we're going to say now is concerning something that you're experiencing to yourself. But when you see someone else experiencing anything which is not Teva Nirvanigla, you have to cry out to Hashem and say, he doesn't deserve it. That's what Hashem wants you to say to him. To say he doesn't deserve it. That's what it says in Hayom Yom. You have to always look at a merit and say, Hashem, please, please, let him have revealed good. But now let's get back to the person, how he's supposed to look at it himself. Yiddishkeit is about empathy and it's about empowerment. Hashem is empowering us by sometimes cleansing us. So the idea of punishment is really development, is really growth, is really cleansing. Sometimes it's painful. Now, let's go to Tanya, chapter 26 for a second, because that's a very important point. I don't want to elaborate on this, but I do want to bring a proof from chapter 26, which is a question that I had, and I asked many, many great Hasidic thinkers, and I'll tell you the question. The Alter Rebbe over here talks about how could a person go through life and have something which is lacking in his necessities. Bonei Chayim Mezoni. We're not talking luxuries here, but the basics. Food, shelter, health. And the Alter Rebbe says, and what this says, Sefer Shel Beinanim, it's talking to the average person. He says you should realize that this is really good because it's coming from a higher level of good. And the Alter Rebbe brings this is the answer. In other words, he's addressing the question. The Alter Rebbe wrote a Tanya, and the Tanya is all answers to man's questions. And one of the questions is how can I be happy when I'm living a life of suffering and I'm having a lot of hardships? That's the question that he addresses in chapter 26. And he answers, everyone knows the saying of our sages, just like we bless Hashem for the good. And the Gemara says, why? That's the meaning of the Gemara when it says, just like you bless Hashem for the good, you have to bless Hashem for what seems not good. Why kishem? Because it's also good. And then the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain, it's coming even from a higher level of elikus, from godliness. And he explains there's Alma Diskasia, Alma Disgalia. This is a higher level, you could say blessings in disguise. Sometimes when the elikus is so intense, it's so strong, it could manifest itself in a way that could cause in the physical world destructiveness, but really it comes from a higher level. See there. That's what the Alter Rebbe explains. But by the way, the Rebbe says a vart, but still the Gemara says kishem, it's only kishem, because we really can't hack it as the same thing mamish, and therefore the bracha for teiva nirvan nigla is ha-teiva meitiv, because we see the good, we feel the good. But the bracha, which is for something which is sad or tragic, is a different bracha, because we really are asking Hashem for teiva nirvan nigla. Then you can ask another question over here, but if this is a higher level of good, why would you be asking for teiva nirvan nigla? So we're not going to get into that now, for revealed good. But I want to ask a simple question over here. And this is where we see something profound. If the Alter Rebbe is talking about a Sefer Shel Beinanim, we're talking about the Mr. Average, and the person is suffering, so why does the Alter Rebbe have to tell him that it's coming from a higher level of good? You're lucky. Asher Yagever, Asher Tesera Yutke, the Alter Rebbe is saying over here, because the Eibishter is giving you a beer hug. It's a higher level of godliness. You're closer. And that's the question. What's more important to you? Where you stand in relation to Hashem, closer or further, or whether it works out for you good in this world. That's what the Alter Rebbe is saying. But the question is, why does the Alter Rebbe have to come to this vart of toiv, of alma diskasi, that it's really a higher level of good? Let him just say, this is a punishment, and a punishment's also good, because he's cleansing you. And I asked this question to many people, and the only answer which some people said was, it seems that even when it's a punishment, we're going now deeper. Listen, even when it's a punishment, so the punishment itself is really all education and guidance and help you become a master over yourself. Even then, we don't even look at it because it's a punishment. We're going deeper. Glat. The Eibishter loves you. And he's giving you toiv of alma diskasia. Not everybody can hack toiv of alma diskasia. Not everyone can handle a good which is a high level of good, even though it sometimes means that it's going to be sometimes painful. But you're the lucky one. Asher Gevash, Yutke, you're getting a revelation of a higher level of good. Now, of course, this is so hard sometimes. But my point is, the Alter Rebbe, in chapter 26, he doesn't mention even a second, a word, a remez of anything to do with punishment. In other words, if you're a Beinani, you can always look inside yourself you fashbas with myself, you could always see that you're not doing something right. And therefore say that the reason why this punishment is happening to you is because this and this that you did wrong, because you're not perfect. The answer is because Chassidus is not about punishment, even if we say punishment is cleansing. Chassidus more emphasized the idea that something deeper, something higher, something greater is going on. It's a whole different thing. This is a revelation of Tova Valmadiskasya. And this is what we see in Likutei Sichas Chilik Beis. I'm sure we spoke about this many times because this is one of my sichas, one of the Rebbe sichas, which is a life-changing sicha. That's Chilik Beis Dvarim, where the Rebbe talks about the Bris Ben Absarim, and Hashem tells Avram Avinu, Yodeya Teda Ki Geri Yezaracha Beretz Leilahem, they're going into exile. By the Bris Ben Absarim, when they're making the covenant. And the Rebbe asks the question over there, now is the time that Hashem decides to tell Avram, when they're making a covenant, a declaration of love, that's when he tells them your children are going to go into exile. And the answer the Rebbe gives is on the contrary, to show that itself was coming from the deep love. And this is what the Rebbe says in the Sikh also on Chilach of Beis, Tazria, that we have to look at everything in the end, that it's not even about punishment, even though punishment we could look at as cleansing, as something positive. But really, it's something deeper. It's about you and for your good. But sometimes your good, for whatever reason which we can't understand now, for your good, we're going to have to go through a certain process. And he brings an analogy over there, and he talks about exile, Golus, that we're in exile right now. And he brings a famous analogy of the teacher's trance. And this is going to be connected b'derech remez to the word Tazria. The Rebbe brings an analogy in Chelik Beis, Likutei Sichas Dvarim, about a teacher who's teaching his students. And then, while he's teaching his students, a new idea, a revelation. I'm having a revelation. A new idea pops into his head. Now what does he do? While he's engaged and he's talking, he's totally involved and committed to the students, and he's getting involved and he's a fantastic teacher, a new idea came into his head. Now he has a problem. He has a dilemma. What's the dilemma? When a new idea pops into your head, Chochmah is like a Barak HaMavrik, it's like lightning. Either you attach yourself to the new idea and ride it, and then be able to bring it down and internalize it, or it pops into your head and it pops out of your head. So now we have a dilemma. Here he's talking to the students and he's totally involved in giving them his utmost undivided attention to all the students, and he's totally involved with the students, and the students are involved with him, and they're so into it. All of a sudden he has a new idea that popped into his head. Does he attach himself to the new idea and temporarily, momentarily abandon the students? Or does he continue teaching the students and lose the new idea? And the Rebbe says he attaches himself to the new idea. Why? Because he's a teacher. Because he's devoted to the students. The reason he's attaching himself to the new idea is because he wants to eventually give this over to the students. And this is a new idea that never came before. This is going to be such a spectacular, unbelievable new idea of nuclear power that's going to transform the world and transform their lives. So therefore he has to momentarily abandon the students. And to them it seems like it might be an abandonment, but the students have to realize that it's all coming out of the love of the teacher. And what is it? Something is happening, something's percolating, something's working, something's developing that they're going to soon see. Hang on, it's coming. And that's how the Rebbe learns Pshat in Golus. And the Rebbe negates the idea, even though he's saying davening, no. That's what it looks like. And there is a truth to that on a certain level. But really there's something deeper going on, which has nothing to do with Havedas, which has nothing to do with Tshuva. It has to do with a certain trajectory. To get to the Binyan Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, we have to go through the first Beis HaMikdash, and the Churban Beis HaMikdash, and Golos, and we have to have the second Beis HaMikdash, and Golos, because that's the way how this new idea, the ultimate idea, is going to be developed, and that's how we're going to get it. So, we could say that what the Rebbe says in Chelik Chof Beis, that the uftu of this week's parsha is that by Mitzorah we see how the whole idea of punishment is not really punishment as something negative, but it's something positive. It's about the rebirth of the person. Guess what? Tazria means with a new idea. When there's a revelation, that's what it means, Tazria. When there's the lightning, when there's the conception. And then you have to develop it. And it's very interesting that in Chelik Zayin, in page 79, the Rebbe says something which I never saw before, and I think this might be a very big chiddush. The Rebbe said that Yidua as inyan ha'alod is as chachas yeshmayim. Birth, we say it happens in the female because she's connected to Malchus. Malchus is mushish and keser, and therefore it has the koyach ha'alod. So the birth is as chachas yeshmayim. In a mother who gives birth, there's the power of creation. But the ischachus is not in the elod gufa. Here the Rebbe says the real ischachus is not in the birth, not in them Tazria. When she conceives, the elod is not a gilui helam. When you're giving birth, it's just that what was previously concealed becomes revealed. But am oich far der elod is that uber shengevem behelam. Before you gave birth to the child, you had the whole child. A minute before the child's born, you have the whole child with Ramache Varam Moshes Hagidim. Und durch the ladies and our ladies come begilui. And through birth, it's only that it came out in a revealed way. The ischachis upper. Where do you see the true novelty? The true creative process? The fact that you became pregnant, that's the real hischachus. Tazria shows an hischachus. So, this is over here also. When the new idea comes, that's the Tazria. It's a new idea, but sometimes we don't know it. We have to have faith that this is the new idea that we don't see. We could be pregnant, we don't even realize that we're pregnant. So when the teacher is lost in his thought and it looks like he abandoned the students, the truth is he didn't abandon the students at all. He's just attaching himself to a new idea so that he should eventually be able to give it over to the students. But what you have to look at, everything that's happening in your life as part of Tazria. It's all part of a rebirth to make you stronger, to make you better. You know, on a simple level, we have to look at the Torah. It's in Chodesh Nisan. Nisan is about miracles. So that's the connection between Tazria, Mitzorah, and Chodesh Nisan miracles. The whole thing was a miracle that Hashem went out of his way to make you a better person. But on a most simple level, we have to realize, every Yid has to realize that Yiddishkeit is the best program, Baruch Hashem. And it wasn't only about, it's about bringing out the best in us. And that's the most simplistic level of Elucha ben Cherel and Mishaisik b'Torah. You have sometimes a person, there are tragedies, people have addictions, and it brings them down, and they lose everything. Their life falls apart. And we have a Torah, the Eibishter is the ultimate doctor, and he gave us Torah. And he just says, follow this program. It's only going to bring Tova and Nirvanigla ultimately. It's the best thing for you. This week we had a Farbrengen in Yeshiva Gedela, and a Meshulach, somebody who was raising money, came to this Farbrengen. He's not a Lubavitcher. And he spoke, he asked to speak. And he's talking to the Bachim, and he tells him, does any of you know Laskil Chabina? That's a Igris Kodesh, the Alter Rebbe and Tanya, Yud Aleph, which talks about suffering. And this Jew comes and he's talking to the Bachim in Yeshiva Gedela. He says, I've learned this 1,000 times. He's married for 15 years. He doesn't have children yet. And he's saying the only thing that keeps him going through life is learning this chassidus of the Alter Rebbe, which talks about how everything is really good. Ein ra yer mo mayla. And the Eibishter is Tachlis HaTov and Kol Madav D'Rachman L'Tav of it. And the more you believe in it, the Alter Rebbe says we will see how it's Tov. My point that I want to bring out is that it's with the power of Chassidus, with the power of the Perek Tanya, Perek Chavov, and Laskil Chabina. Chassidus gives the person the power to be able to see what's beneath the veil, to understand what's really going on. That's what he said by the Farbrengen. And there's a line that a lot of people have been saying lately. I've heard it from many different speakers, and I think it's a mighty dikavot. And that is, sometimes when you find yourself in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but you've actually been planted. Amazing, amazing. Because it's dark. You're the seed. Isha ki Tazria. A seed, as Chassidus also explains, sometimes the seed has to dissolve. And then it triggers rebirth. So you're in a dark place. It's dark. And you think you're buried. You think it's game over, finished, terrible. But the truth is you've been planted. You've been put there because you're special. You have powers. You could accomplish something where you're at that no one else could accomplish. You've been planted. You've been planted. Tazria to come to the older. There's a story. The Rabbi Lipsker, Shalom Ben Lipsker, he runs Aleph Institute. He's a famous rabbi, a shliach of the Rebbe in Florida. One of the things he also does is he runs the Aleph Institute, which is an organization which does Yiddishkeit, Yiddish programs for Yiddishkeit in the military, but also in prisons. So one time they will work on a certain program where they can get prisoners to be able to leave the prison for like 2 weeks to follow some sort of religious education of Judaism. Rabbi Lipsker got in touch with the Bureau of Prisons in Washington, and he brought 20 prisoners to the Rebbe in Crown Heights for Farbrengen and Shabbos. And the Rebbe usually comes down on 1:30 for Farbrengen, and it was that Shabbos when he brought those 20 people to Crown Heights. He's sitting downstairs in the big Besmedish of 770 for the Farbrengen, and mitamol, all of a sudden Rabbi Leibel Groner is running around at 1:22 or something. Where's Shalom Ben Lipsker? Anyways, he finds Shalom Ben Lipsker and he tells him, obviously Rabbi Lipsker had written to the Rebbe that he's bringing these people for the Shabbos to New York. Anyways, the Rebbe had told Rabbi Groner, who was the Rebbe's secretary, to give over a certain message to Rabbi Lipsker. The first thing that he told Rabbi Lipsker, the Rebbe wants you to know that you should not have everyone sitting together. Because if you're going to have a group of 20 people sitting together and they don't look exactly like the rest of the Chassidim, they're shaven, whatever, they're prisoners, they look different a bit than a regular chassid. So the Rebbe says if they're going to be sitting all together, they're going to stand out and people are going to say, who's that group over there? And it's going to bring attention to this group, and then people are going to say, but prisoners, it's not dignified. So you should not be sitting by the Farbrengen all together but spread out. That's the first thing he said. The second thing the Rebbe said is that the truth is it used to be a seder, used to be the way it worked was that people would give a bottle of vodka to the Rebbe before the Farbrengen. They would give it to the office, and then the Rebbe would distribute the bottles to different shluchim who are going away or making events, and they would announce it and say, this is a bottle of mashke for this in this Chabad house, and this in this state, and this in this country, and this is for a Sim Sefer Torah that we're making over there, or whatever. So the Rebbe told Rabbi Leibel Groner to give over the message to Rabbi Lipsker. The truth is that you people deserve, you and your organization deserve a bottle of mashke and are worthy of a bottle of mashke more than anyone else to show support. But we're not going to do it because it would bring attention to this whole organization that we're doing stuff for prisoners, so we don't want to bring any attention to them at all. And then Rabbi Lipsky said that the Rebbe spoke a sikha. It was the time, the Shabbos after Shavuos, where all the Rabbonim usually come to the Rebbe, Chassidim that are Rabbonim, rabbis. They can't come for Pesach and they can't come for Tishrei. They usually come for Shavuos. So the Rebbe spoke a sikha, a talk. In the same talk, first he spoke to the rabbis, admonishing them. A rabbi shouldn't rest on his laurels. He's a rabbi. He might think he knows enough already. No, he has to always work on himself and grow higher, grow stronger, be better, etc., etc. That was one part of the talk. In the same talk, the Rebbe then spoke to the idea of the prisoners. And the Rebbe said that a person who's in a prison is in a golus, mitir golus. Number one, he's in a golus because every Jew is in a golus. He's in a battle. He's in a war with his nefesh habahamis. So his nefesh halikis, his yetzer tov, is battling his yetzer hara, his nefesh habahamis. Second of all, and he's talking to the prisoners, there's an idea of golus, that we're all in golus. We're in golus. We're exiled. We're not in the Beis Hamikdash. We're in golus by the nations. And then you have a person who's in prison. So it's a golus, mitir golus, a triple golus, a triple exile. And then the Rebbe said, whoever finds himself in such a situation is special. That means he has special powers, that he can handle such a situation. And he has a shlichus over there. He has a mission over there, etc., etc. So what did the Rebbe do? The Rebbe lifted up the prisoners. The Rebbe gave them support. The Rebbe shows that they're people. They're not lower class. They're even better than the rabbis. The rabbis, he's telling, that they have to improve themselves. And the prisoners, he's saying that they're special. They've been specially empowered by Hashem to be able to accomplish their mission in the prison, whatever it is. So this is the approach. Yiddishkeit, we don't look at punishment as something negative, as something bad, as something like revenge, chas v'shalom. It's all tachlis hatov, and everything. And this is what every single person, first of all, we have to say right here and now that every single person should have tov and vanigla, only reveal good in every single area of his life. Amen ken yiratzon. But now we're also telling every single person, every single one of us should look inside ourselves and remember this key word, Tazria. Everything, every step, every minute of your life, every experience of your life is all Tazria. It's all to come to new ideas, new depths, new levels, next level, etc., etc. We should hope that every single one of us should reach the next level. Posting from my home, your man in Melbourne.